Night football game last night. Managed to wrangle defeat from the jaws of victory. Second quarter, Dolphins up 14-3, and there it goes.
Hit him in a bad spot right between the numbers, and tips in the NFL lead to easy interceptions. Falls right into Micah Fitzpatrick's lap.
One of two he'd have against his former team. And then here's the play everyone is talking about.
I think our colleague Mina Kimes deemed this the best. It's called the tank pressure, where everyone blitzes and no one else covers. And then you give the opposing team, the Steelers, an incredibly easy touchdown.
We will talk much more about this in a moment. Meanwhile, 14-10 at the half. Then after Fitzpatrick's second interception of the game, how about this catch by Juju?
The young star. Good to see him showing up on a Monday night football game. The inside fade. I'd expect to see this next Monday night on a Randy Moss, you got mossed segment. Incredible effort by Juju.
17 unanswered for the Steelers, so now they're ahead. And then why not give it to your horse to put this one away when you need it? James Conner right up the middle.
Really nice job of seeing the double team and then a cutback. And watch that contact balance finish. Puts his hand on the ground, make sure he gets that ball over the goal line.
Dolphins weren't coming back because they're not trying, but there was one bad moment here for James Conner at the end. He had 23 carries for 145 yards, but leaves there in the final few minutes with an AC joint injury. It did not look good. We'll get the latest on that in just a moment. Meanwhile, the latest from Pittsburgh is reasonably good. Now, here's the concern. As the Steelers try to work their way back into a playoff picture, Conner is the big question mark. The impact cannot be overstated. Steelers are 10-2-1 since 2018, when Conner has over 70 scrimmage yards and just 1-6 when he is under. So, Dan Graziano, let's start there. For a Steeler team that I'm about to make an argument still has a lot to play for, what are we hearing about James Conner?
Relatively positive news. It sounds like the AC diagnosis is better than if the X-ray had revealed a fracture. So I think it's possible he has to miss some practice time on a short week, but I think there's some optimism that he might be able to play against the Colts on Sunday. We'll see how the week goes for him.
That shapes up to be a very big game. Swagoo, I'm about to make a case to you, right? I'm a lawyer, and you're the skeptical judge, okay? We have talked at length at this desk about how the division never ran away from the Browns, so they still have hope. Well, the division never ran away from the Steelers either. They are right now sitting at 3-5. They are only 2 games out of first in the division. And the Ravens, who lead that division, play New England this week. I'm sitting here telling you that next Monday morning, the Steelers are going to be 1 game out of first in the AFC North.
Ugh. That's what I'll say to that. No, listen, G, I know everybody's excited. Let's not forget it was the damn Dolphins. That's number one. Number two is positioning, because of how abysmal this conference has been, this division has been. So the Steelers are sitting there. You know what I saw last night, though? I saw Mason Rudolph miss a lot of passes. I saw him hang in the pocket, and I'm thinking to myself, if the Dolphins had any pass rusher, they'd have sacked Mason Rudolph 10 times last night. This team had a great night against a terrible team that's tanking for Chase Young as opposed to Tua. And then when you start thinking about how Pittsburgh wants to move forward, there were some bright spots. They're still trying to figure out, can Mason Rudolph be a legit quarterback? Can he do all this? But hell no, G. Come on, man.
Again, I'm not making an argument they're good. I'm making an argument the division might be bad, and I misspoke. They're not 3-5. They're 3-4. It's not as bad even as that. Let's quickly, though, talk about that defense. And can we put Mina's tweet up there? Let's give credit where credit is due. Mina Kimes with a brilliant, look at that. That is an outstanding job of describing this defense.
I feel like I don't need to do any breakdowns on Get Up anymore because Mina has stolen the show. I mean, this is the tank version of a pressure, right? When you have, remember like we talked about the Dolphins and I was like, oh man, coaches don't tank. Players don't, I don't know. This play, they blitzed 8 guys and did not cover anyone else. And to Mina's point, that's why she drew the tank on the field.
What do you think?
I never seen anything like that.
I'd ask for a trade.
Mika already did.
They all do.
I would. I would ask for a trade. If I'm a player, if I'm Xavier Howard and I'm looking at us call this defense right here, I'm like, okay, I see what this is for real.
And that was like 3rd and 20.
And listen, this is what everybody was thinking last night. I put the same tweet up. I was like, Miami really tanking. Like, visually, that was a tank.
I need to keep it here, Nick, and I'm sorry, and Nick is not sitting here, but for all of you at home, I'm talking to someone who's not in the conversation, but I need another minute here, because let's make it clear. We talk all the time about how organizations tank, but players and coaches don't. That is a defense on that play that is inexcusable, right? There is no other way to defend it.
Gee, I played in this league 9 years. And if my coach called the play like that on 3rd and 25, we having a damn fight on the sideline. All right, I don't believe in that anymore because look, the Dolphins players know all the talk that's been surrounding the Miami Dolphins as far as what they're trying to do for the future. That's a give me play. That's almost like let them score so we can get the ball back and score. Except it's not time to do that yet. That's horrible.
The only time I've ever seen anything remotely close to that has been a Hail Mary situation where you took 5 guys or 4 guys and put them on the goal line and forced the team to throw short and then everyone rally and tackle. I've never seen.
This is the opposite of that.
Yeah, and this was a big moment. Like the game was still in play here right before the half, obviously. I've never seen anything that structurally unsound on purpose.
There's no way you should be in that. No way, unless you're trying to get the first pick of the draft.
All right, yeah, with that, I think that was necessary to say because this is something that I think people have to be taking into account when they're looking at what they're seeing out there on the field. I think that was a point that was worth making. Meanwhile, it is an important day across the National Football League. Elle, let's go to that.
That's right. NFL trade deadline, 4 p.m. Eastern today. And yesterday, our own Adam Schefter reported that the Giants made a rare trade with their rival Jets. For defensive lineman Leonard Williams, the Jets will receive a 3rd-round pick in 2020 and a 5th rounder in 2021. So let's talk with Dan Graziano, our NFL insider, and Mike Tannenbaum is here as well. I want to go kind of tape to tape on some other names that are percolating right now. Let's start with Bengals receiver A.J. Green. What's the latest?
Everybody would like to know if A.J. Green's available because he's the best receiver out there that could be. But so far, A, he hasn't played this year, and B, the Bengals have not wanted to make him available. The Bengals are not interested in doing these deadline deals just to amass picks. They want to keep Green on their team and try and win games in the second half. You can argue with that strategy if you want, but that's where the Bengals are at this point. If you need a receiver, Robbie Anderson from the Jets or Rashad Higgins from the Browns is a more likely target.
Can imagine people need cornerback help. So what's latest on Broncos corner Chris Harris Jr.?
Yeah, like A.J. Green, another guy in the final year of his deal. You'd think, hey, the Broncos going nowhere. Sorry, El, the Broncos not going to have a big year, but maybe they'll trade him for picks. But so far, the Broncos have been resistant. Look, the deadline is coming up here in 8 hours,
right.
So things could change. But so far, if you need a cornerback, there are other options like Josh Norman of Washington. Speaking of Washington, yeah, Josh Norman, right? He's available. He's got a contract they'd like to move. And then, of course, the big mystery that has been the big mystery since the summertime. Trent Williams, the offensive tackle, has not reported, doesn't want to play for Washington anymore. So far, teams such as the Cleveland Browns are a team that could absolutely be very active today. They need a lot of help on the defensive side of the ball. They made one trade with the Browns yesterday, so we'll see if they continue to look for help there in the secondary or maybe even just in defense in general because they're getting lit up.
Yeah, a lot of people thought a missed opportunity to go after Jalen Ramsey there. It certainly didn't work out. He ended up in L.A. Dan Graziano, Mike Tannenbaum breaking down what's going to be an active day we anticipate. Greeny, let's get to officiating.
Yeah, let's get to a fine waiting to happen. Bucs head coach Bruce Arians woke up Monday still mad at the officiating after his team's loss to Tennessee Sunday, and he had a point. Late in the 4th quarter, an early whistle, clearly a terrible call, cost Tampa a potential go-ahead touchdown on a fumble recovery. He's mad.
Referees aren't held accountable. Coaches get fired, general managers get fired, players get cut. Referees aren't accountable. And it's a shame. It's been that way for 40 years, and now that we got a new agreement, it'll be that way for 40 more years.
All right, so all of us are sitting here cheering. We all love it. Go ahead, just crush the refs. We can't stand the refs. Dan Graziano, tell everyone why he's dead wrong.
Well, he's wrong on a number of levels. First, officials are held accountable, right? They're subjected to a review process every single week. People say they're not full-time. They actually, there are hours that they have to spend listening to what they did wrong. Teams can submit all kinds of complaints about them every single week. They are accountable. In terms of how accountable they are, they make about 1/30th as much as head coaches do. So I don't think that it's reasonable to assume the same level of public accountability, right? Yeah, coaches get fired. Officials don't often get fired. One did last year, but it was for sustained poor performance over time, not for a bad call. And then finally, I mean, it's not a 40-year agreement they just did with the NFL Referees Association. It's a 7-year agreement, and it includes a great deal of accountability in terms of they're going to hire someone to oversee training program. They are going to have a buyout program for older officials. They're going to have a 3-year probationary period for new officials before they fully vest in terms of their benefits. So it's more of the same unhelpful, complaining stuff it's rooted in Falsehood, actually.
Okay.
I mean, he's wrong. He sounds
You're probably right, but that's no fun. Tell him how wrong he is.
You've been watching.
right, but no
Yeah.
fun. That's the story of
How
my
is
life.
he rooted in fault? I mean,
I just gave you 3 things he said that were wrong.
But
just flat out factually
but the
wrong.
foundational aspect of the officiating being a problem is completely accurate.
Okay, there are bad calls. There have been bad calls for years, for decades.
There's more bad calls than we've ever had.
Says who?
Says statistics. Says
What do you,
data.
how do you bad calls?
We're up 10%.
You're saying there are more calls.
Yes.
That doesn't mean they're bad. What if there are more penalties? What if there are more rules being broken?
No, there's
I mean,
more bad calls. There's more flags being thrown. We have 126 plays a game. Combined 17 flags thrown per game.
So stop holding.
That's more than we've ever had.
Now, wait, now, Dan, hold on a
if
second.
people are breaking the rules, they're supposed to throw flags, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're being told no.
Okay, I agree with Dan G, not Dan O, because look,
Thank you.
The public executions, and I've been on the receiving end of those public executions, are because these are forward-facing jobs. The referees are held accountable. They do move on from them. And look, from a team standpoint, yeah, we all want to say what Bruce Arians says, but they are held accountable. It's just done in a little bit more of a noble and eloquent way.
Bump the statistics. They don't pass the eye test. There are 3 teams right now. I'm sorry, Dan. There are 3 teams right now that can unequivocally say that they were absolutely hosed and had a game taken from them because of officials.
What else is new? I mean, that's happened for
But that
years.
can't be the answer.
But they'll be held accountable in
I
their
just
own
gave
way.
you the answer. They have a new agreement where they work on training, where they make sure these guys are trained better, where they're monitored more closely, where they age out the older ones when they didn't used to. I mean, it is being addressed.
Yeah,
It's not going to be addressed on Monday and
Go ahead,
Tuesday because
final
of
word.
one bad call
I
Sunday.
hear y'all with the factual stuff, okay? I hear you with that. All right? These coaches getting fired because of losses. Players get cut because of losses. Last year, I talked about dudes losing a week's salary because the refs made a wrong call in a playoff game. Like, we understand that Bruce Arians is mad. We understand that he's saying something that's not factually true. But what is factually true is wins and losses cost you your job. And when refs cost it, when a ref costs you a win and it costs your job, and it's not publicly pontificated that these refs need to be talked about, then it is. They need to be held accountable.
I guess I just like
publicly.
facts more than some
Publicly.
people do. I
It
don't
ain't
know.
about facts, Dan.
It is about facts. Everything's about facts.
Was
the eye
the
test.
playoff game, was the Rams and Saints game factually messed up? And
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Was the Lions and Packers game on Monday night a factual mess up by the officiating?
Sure.
Yes.
So those are facts.
But those
it's not
officials,
new.
they'll be held accountable in their own way. We just won't see it publicly.
It needs to be publicly.
We are going to get back to this, and I have a feeling most of the argument will continue in our commercial breaks. In the meantime, I have something else for you this morning. It took till week 8, but Odell may finally be enough upset about his lack of touches on offense that it's a problem.
No.
He had 5 catches on 7 targets for 52 yards on Sunday. Here's what he had to say after the game.
I just felt like we didn't challenge as much as we could have. I think we kind of shied away from it. I was expecting and looking forward to it, but that wasn't the case today. We had a couple plays, but for whatever reason, we didn't do as much challenging as the matchups that we all talked about and all that. Other than that, whatever came my way, pretty much I caught. Whatever opportunities I had, I made the most of them. But you can only control what you can control.
Okay, so he's not happy with the way he's being used, at least on Sunday. So yesterday they asked his coach, Freddie Kitchens, what he thought about those comments. Here's what Freddie said.
Odell had 7 balls thrown to him. He caught 5 of them. I'm not responding to that. We need to win a football game. That's what I'm worried about.
Swagoo, what do we have here?
Y'all go ahead and have a conversation.
I'm going to use L's word right now for you. You're being petty right now. This is petty.
Petty wop.
Gee, didn't we stand right over
We
there?
did. You told us it was coming.
It is inevitable. A $100 million receiver that's used to getting every ball thrown to him since he entered the league ain't getting balls no more. You know what? 24% of his routes he's targeted, and 57 players in the NFL have a higher rate of being targeted. They targeted receivers last night we ain't never heard of in Pittsburgh. More than Odell Beckham Jr., who was arguably on pace to be one of the greatest receivers that ever played the game. We're not talking about a guy that was good. We're talking about a guy that was on pace to be one of the greatest to ever play the position. And they won't throw him the ball.
So now what happens?
Well, I have to eat my words a little bit from Marcus. This isn't an issue yet, though, right now. it's just a reference by Odell saying, hey, throw me the ball a little bit more. And to Freddie Kitchens' point, they did. Like, they did throw him the football 7 times, down 17-0. I'd argue that, Odell, if you're going to want the ball, make the catch. Like, you want the ball thrown to you a little bit more, but you also dropped one.
He playing against
on
the
a back
best
shoulder
corner in the
ball.
league.
But the ball hits you in the hands. Like, if you're going to demand the football more, catch it. That would be my reply to it.
When you watch those clips, it looks like this is a team that's more comfortable losing 49-47 than winning 6-3, and that's a problem.
We were talking about that during the offseason. You said that before the season began. The problems are going to come if he's not as involved in the offense as he wants to be. And the reality is that guys like Odell, look, I love watching him play. He is worth the price of admission, and he is a brilliantly talented player.
That's a good throw.
But teams that depend on throwing the ball to one guy all the time, they don't win. So I go back and find, Dan Graziano, go back and find me the championship team with a guy like that.
And I think, Freddie Kitchens' point here is, like, we got a lot of problems. I mean, like, we have to score. Nick Chubb fumbled the ball twice. They turned it over on 3 straight offensive snaps. Baker Mayfield threw a shovel pass to a defensive lineman. I mean, there's a lot of bad things going on there. So I think Freddie's like, look, enough. Like, don't pile on. If we beat the Broncos on Sunday, everybody will feel better. But they definitely need to win, and they need to start stacking wins.
Can I play devil's advocate? What did Odell Beckham Jr. just do that's any different than what Thielen and Gilmore did? Like, they called out their quarterback. It was galvanizing. It, like, all of a sudden, we're like, thank goodness they did it. What's the difference?
Here's the difference. The difference is Kirk Cousins, a veteran. Baker Mayfield is drinking from
Baker Mayfield is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I'm
Don't start going backwards now.
According to who?
All right? According to all the pundits coming into this season, he was supposed to be the guy. Let me get off Baker, because this ain't about Baker. Bottom line is this. They assembled this talent. We talked about Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. They good friends. They going to be fine with how this thing is going. Ain't no way in hell. Listen.
We also said that it would be fine if they won.
The one thing you can't take away from Odell is that he's an uber competitor. All right? And he ain't going, you losing and I'm not a part of what we doing? Not happening.
He's back in New York again.
Not happening.
Listen,
And even in New York, he was getting the ball.
Everybody in the league is an uber competitor, and everybody in the league is fine when they're winning. Now we're seeing what exactly the reality of it is. This thing could get really, really ugly quickly in Cleveland. All right, we're just getting started here. We're going to have to calm everybody down. What a difference a game makes. The Steelers are back in the thick of things. Why you should be paying attention to a young star in Pittsburgh, that's on the way. And the Saints survived and thrived without Drew Brees. Why their preparation is a sneaky huge story in the NFL this year. Get Up on ESPN.